What is up, everybody? I am Kevin Iole. He is Dana White, the CEO of the UFC. And I kept practicing Dana because I didn't want to say president of the UFC because I've been so
But I
used
am
to
the president too. I'm
so
I'm
20
I'm
some
I'm
years.
both
So
or either, whichever you prefer.
so we got it correct. UFC 298 on Saturday, Anaheim. Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria. Love that fight. I love Alexander Volkanovski, what this guy represents. And I want to start with this. ESPN came out with a stat the other day, and I had to look it up. They said no fighter 35 or under, 35 or over, excuse me, has ever won a title fight from lightweight on down. So I looked at featherweight and I took every title fight in featherweight history. The older fighter in every featherweight title fight has lost all, would be 1-12 without Volkanovski, right? The older fighter. Volkanovski is 6-0. So it's pretty amazing is that, Volkanovski's been older than all these guys. So the younger fighter always wins in featherweight title fights, except for Volkanovski.
That is fascinating. Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't see that stat. That's fascinating.
It is really, it is. Volkanovski was actually the younger fighter one time when he fought the Korean Zombie, but it was. So does that concern you going into the fight? If you're looking at it from his standpoint, Topuria is 14-0, young guy coming off a brutal win over Josh Emmett. You're Volkanovski, you're 35 years old, coming off a loss in a lightweight title fight. Do you think he has any reason to be concerned?
Listen, anytime you go in and you're defending your title, you always have a reason to be concerned. I don't think he has a reason to be concerned about the stats. I mean, it's been very clear that Volkanovski is just different, man. I mean, that guy, when you look at his career, his life, and what he's accomplished, and what he continues to do, I think when you talk about the stats and what you're saying, it just adds a lot more excitement for this fight this weekend. I love this card this weekend. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, the main card is a very fun card. A couple fights I want to ask you about. Just staying on the main event for a little bit here in Topuria. The one thing that when people look at it, I mean, he's 14-0, so what you can't do any better than that. Coming off that annihilation of Josh Emmett that I thought was an amazing performance by him, and the win over Bryce Mitchell before that. But he doesn't have those. If you look at his last six and Volkanovski's six, that experience factor is really big. And to me, that's a very telling thing. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the names, when you start talking about who he's beat, what was at stake when he beat him, all those kind of things, that's what Topuria doesn't have yet. And so you can have all the stats you want. He doesn't have that big fight experience. This is going to be his first one. This is his first major name and first big fight. So he's got as much of a stud as the guy is. He's got a lot to prove still.
What do you make of the way he's carrying himself? Like I interviewed him the other day, and he was so cocky, and I mean he said all the other fighters at featherweight suck, and that he was making a case for fighting Conor because he said he can't go down. And after he beats Volkanovski, he said there's no reason for him to fight Yair Rodriguez, Brian Ortega, or Max Holloway because they must suck if they lost to Volkanovski. So he has to go to 155 and fight Conor.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I don't know about that. So I think he's got a lot to listen. When you're undefeated, you've never tasted defeat, and you've been on the rise that this guy is on. That's the way you should be thinking, and that's what your mentality should be. But we'll see how it plays out on Saturday night.
I don't know historically what division you would think has been the UFC's best in your 20 plus years with the company, right? For a while there, it was light heavyweight. You were a light heavyweight dominant division. Lightweight has really been, but when you look at the champions in the featherweight division that you've only had 4 regular champions: Jose Aldo, Conor McGregor, Max Holloway, and Alexander Volkanovski. You might have the greatest collection of champions in one division there has ever been, right? I mean, those are all Hall of Famers, all super elite guys.
Absolutely true, and I think over the years, we've done a great job, especially in the last, 5 or 6, at building up every division. I mean, when you look at, you go top 8 in the featherweight division, you go top 8 in the bantamweight division, you go top 8 in the flyweight division. The list goes on and on. I mean, straight killers.
I want to give a little love, I guess, since you say that. I want to give a little love to Mick Maynard and Sean Shelby, and I guess Hunter Campbell too, right? Because for this reason, Joe Silva got so much love and credit, and he was a mad genius, and he did all this, but he's been gone from the company for almost 8 years right now, and look where the company is. And I would argue today that there's more better fighters in the promotion than there's ever been before.
There's no doubt about it. They've done a fucking great job with building these divisions. And, when you look at pre-2016, I mean, we started from scratch in 2001. We started to build not only the company, but the rosters. And, it's obviously gotten much bigger. There's people that now we can get from all over the world. Training is at a whole nother level now than it was back then. But yes, and you gotta think about things like the Contender Series and how far the Ultimate Fighter came and who they helped build, and all the other things that we do to highlight and build young talent, and you got to throw in the Performance Institute too.
You think that's do you think that is a draw for fighters? Like, if you have fighters thinking of coming, I mean, I know the UFC is a major league, so most fighters are going to want to be in the UFC. But if they have a higher offer elsewhere, do you think the Performance Institute helps you a little bit?
I think that the whole pot, everything that we have going on, takes it to another. I mean, when you take somebody who has been in another organization. I'll give you a perfect example. Kayla Harrison. Wait till she comes over here and starts to reap some of the benefits of being inside. I guess I'll call it the machine, and it's everything that we do here. I mean, just when you talk about these other organizations, we are at such another level. Once you get inside here, it's just, if Michael Chandler is a perfect example of that.
Yep.
And Michael Venom Page we'll feel it soon, and the list goes on and on.
No doubt. But I want to ask you about the co-main event now. Robert Whittaker fighting Paulo Costa. I have to say, Dana, first of all, I was shocked at the way Dricus du Plessis handled Robert Whittaker back in July. Because, I mean, to me, Robert Whittaker was kind of like Max Holloway. He wasn't a world champion, but he was one of the 10 or 12 best guys in the world, right? And he just got handled in that fight. This is an important fight for him, I would think. Adesanya handled him a couple times. Du Plessis did now. I mean, are we kind of on the back end of Robert Whittaker? Does he need to have a step-up performance in this fight?
It's a great question. I think both of these guys are in that position right now. Costa's been through some shit over the last couple of years, and Robert Whittaker has been up and down. It's a big fight for both guys. So, but it's a fun fight too. It's a badass fight. I actually really like this matchup.
The Whittaker said something, and I'm going to talk to him later today, so I'll be able to clarify this with him. But I'm sure you probably heard he said this, that he wasn't prepared. He wasn't making any excuses for the du Plessis loss, but he said du Plessis' intensity kind of surprised him, and he didn't anticipate. I would think this guy is a former world champion who fought the best guys in the world. That answer, or that word, shocked me that he said. Did it surprise you when you heard he said that?
I didn't hear him say that, but it doesn't surprise me. I think that sometimes, when you're a guy like Robert Whittaker, who's one of the top 5 guys in the world, top 3, sometimes you can get complacent. Sometimes you don't. Maybe you overlook somebody and you don't take them as serious as you should have. And even as seasoned of a vet as he is, he still makes some mistakes. You know what I mean? I think he knows exactly what he's going to get from Paulo Costa. So, when you look at this fight, you got Whittaker, who's got 10 knockouts, and Costa, who's got 11.
Right.
So when you look at this fight, these two match up really well, and it should be an awesome co-main event.
Ian Machado Gary is an interesting cat. I mean, he's fighting Jeff Neal, and it seems like a lot of guys now these days are trying to pull the Conor McGregor route with craziness and saying nutty things. And he wore the picture of Jeff Neal's mugshot for a while that got Jeff Neal pissed off. But now all of a sudden, guys are going after him on the internet and things. So what's going on with Ian Machado Gary? And do you think that all this controversy outside the octagon is going to overshadow what he's capable of doing inside of it?
I don't think so. I think it was messing with him for a little while there, but you know, you have to get, when you're in this business, you have to get to a point where you block out all that bullshit. Cares what the internet's saying or what the media is saying. Focus on what you need to do, and focus on Jeff Neal is what you need to worry about on Saturday night. But I don't know. I mean, this is a tough fight for him. You know, this fight here pumps him up. He'll probably, if he can beat Jeff Neal, he'll probably be ranked number 7 in the world after this fight, and then he's on his way. I mean, then you're looking at, you know, the Sean Brady's, the Colby Covingtons, the Gilbert Burns, and Shavkat, and you know, you're gonna be fighting some serious fights coming into the end of 24 if he wins on Saturday night. So talking doesn't mean shit. The internet doesn't mean shit. It's time to get serious and start fighting some really tough dudes in the welterweight division.
Last thing on this card, Henry Cejudo versus Merab Dvalishvili. You know, at least Merab is now on a path where he can fight for the title, since we got Sterling has moved up to a featherweight. But I see Henry Cejudo in a kind of an interesting position, simply sort of like Robert Whittaker is in this. You know, this is almost like as great as he's been, and you know, I mean, at one point you could have called him the best in the world, and it's not that long ago. And here he is sitting here now, and without a win over a Merab, what's Triple C going to do? I mean, so this is a huge fight for him, don't you think?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think it was ridiculous that Henry Cejudo retired. Listen, when you retire, you should stay away and never come back. I mean, this guy retired when he was in his fucking prime. I mean, he looked good. And this is a big fight for both these guys. Merab sat out, didn't take a title fight because his friend had the title, you know, all that stuff. So I think you're looking at two guys that, in my opinion, have made some mistakes in their careers. And Saturday night's a big deal for both of these guys.
Yeah, no, I think that to me, that's a fight that I really like, you know, have an eye on.
This whole fucking card is incredible. I love this card.
I think you have, I said this to you just when we were talking before, but I thought 298, 299, and 300 might have been the 3 best cards you put together consecutively. And I can't remember how long. And I think I asked you at the time, what was the impetus for loading these cards up as much as you have, right? I mean, it seems like you're overloading some of these shows.
I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more. These are 3 of the best fight cards in a row that I ever remember in the history of the UFC.
Yeah, it is incredible. Now here's a question for you. We still don't know the main event of UFC 300, do we? I don't think we do, right?
We do not.
Okay. So we have to know that we still have 2 fights to be added to that. But at the end of the day, when we're in October, let's say, what are we going to talk about as a better fight card, UFC 300 or the Sphere? Because you have talked big time about both of those cards.
Different. UFC 300. UFC 300, we don't even have the main event yet, but UFC 300, every single fight on the card could be the main event of a fight night or a pay-per-view. So without a doubt, the greatest card we've ever assembled. I don't remember how many world champions or former world champions are on the card. Do you remember?
It was 9 fights. So.
Yeah, it was something crazy. How many former world champions and whatever. The greatest card we've ever assembled. I mean, I told you Cody Garbrandt and friggin' Figueiredo are the first fight of the night. So you literally, the first prelim of the night, you have to tune in to watch. And what the fuck were we talking about? What was
we
the
were
question?
talking about compared to the Sphere, because you said that was
the Sphere. Yeah. Sorry.
The greatest combat sports card ever.
So the Sphere is going to be something totally different. The Sphere is Mexican Independence Day. And you know, I have this whole commitment right now to Mexico, to PI, building talent, and celebrating these dates, whether it's Cinco de Mayo or Independence Day. Now, the Sphere, I believe U2 has used this much of the capabilities of the Sphere. I'm going to use this much of the capabilities of the Sphere. And I am going to put on a live event that will not be duplicated in sports with using the technology of this place. And again, I don't want to talk too much about it. As we get closer, I will let you know what I'm doing and how it's going to work. But we have something like on 300, something between like 11 to 13 world champions. Yeah. And depending on the main event, could be 11 to 13 world champions on that fucking card.
Okay.
Never been done. It's never been done in the history of combat sports.
Don King used to put on those cards that were unbelievable too. He had, but that's 30 years ago. Most
never
people
had
don't
13.
remember.
He never had 11 to 13 world champions on one card ever.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up, but I would say
yeah, you should probably look at. You're tweeting your head like there's no fucking way he had that many people on one card.
He used to have. No, I don't want to waste time on this, but I'll just say this: he used to have so deep cards in the early days of the MGM when they put those fight cards on. Ricardo Lopez is one of the greatest boxers in history, undefeated in his career. Would be on at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's how deep those cards were, because he had so many fighters under contract, and he would just pile them all on one card. Tyson would be at the top, and then it would just go down crazy. So he had some good ones.
Text me. Do the homework on that one. I want you to text me.
I'll text you later. I'll check that out. So, Power Slap. How did it go for you on this? Was your first one with fans where you sold tickets? You said it was a gate of 300,000. Sean Strickland got kicked out, so it seemed like it was a UFC fight, right? So,
did we kick Sean Strickland out?
No, he said he got kicked out.
He said he got kicked out.
He said he was removed from the premises. Maybe that's not kicked out, but he said removed from the premises.
Not that I'm aware of. That didn't happen, but it could have happened. Not that I'm aware of. But it was a huge success. It was in every way that you can measure success for an event. Power Slap was.
So this is something I have warmed up to it. Like I had fun on Friday, right? Like now I still have a hard time with a dude with his hands behind his back getting whacked in the face, right, and not being able to defend. Like where is the sport in that? But it was cool.
This is that what you just said to me is fucking verbatim what I heard about the UFC, including from you in the early days. So wait a minute. So I just have a hard time wrapping my head around somebody getting hit and going down and somebody can jump on top of them and start punching them. I can't wrap my head around that. Everybody's head's wrapped around it now, isn't it? Yeah. I heard the same shit, including from you, in the beginning about the UFC.
You are in a fantasy land, but we'll ignore that. So I
remember having the conversations, me, you, and Lorenzo, and
I
you
do
could
remember
not wrap your head around that. As could nobody else.
Let's talk about slapping. So
that's what I'm talking about. You just said I have a hard time wrapping my head around somebody holding their hands behind their back and taking a slap. It's the same thing you and everybody else said about the UFC. When a guy went down to the ground, that a guy could jump on top of him and start punching him. Verbatim. I mean, these are all the things that I've heard early on in the UFC. I know it's hard for people to even comprehend the fact that the UFC was in such a place back then that venues didn't want us. Media wouldn't cover us. And the list goes on and on. And we overcame all those hurdles and pushed through all of it. And the same thing. The difference is Power Slap has gone like this in 1 year. It's been 1 year and 1 month. And the numbers, the sponsors, the deals, the video games, the this, the that. There's a huge story coming out in days, I'm assuming, right?
Sorry.
Huge story coming out about Power Slap in days. Next week. That's going to lay out literally everything that's going on with the sport right now. And it's off the charts. I mean, this thing could not possibly be more successful than it is.
What do you think the appeal to people is of it? Like, in other words, I was there and so once I talked to doctors, right? Let me back up on this. I talked to a couple doctors last year. Then I've talked to some doctors here in Las Vegas, not on the record, just talking, and they're all saying, no doctor likes to see somebody get hit, but relative in a competition that
Yep.
it's safer. So once I knew it's safer than boxing, where I unfortunately have had the ringside of 7 fighters being killed in fights that I've been at ringside at.
Right.
So I can wrap my hands around it, and I can watch it. And the event was fun. The seeing Tom Brady there and all the music and everything. That was all good. But what do you think the appeal is to the average person that's sitting at home watching it? Is it just the fact that you're getting these quick knockouts and like I loved also the one fighter was giving the double finger to the fans, and the fans were giving it back to him like during the fight. To me, that was like a little bit of a like a bar fight scene type thing.
Yeah. So I think that what we're finding now, over the last year is some of the clips that do the most numbers are the back and forth slaps, not the guy taking the slap, not the vicious knockouts and things like that. The knockouts do well, but how I got into it is I started seeing this stuff popping up on social media, and I was fascinated by it, and I found myself wondering, like Dumpling was the guy that really got me into slapping. So I would watch him take this slap, and then I had to see how it fucking played out. Yeah. Does this other guy take his slap? And I actually, that's what I got into, was the back and forth, and would the guy get the knockout? For instance, the perfect fight, taking fouls out of it. Fouls are a nightmare in any sport, right? In any sport. So the main event with Muniz and Chris Thomas, it was a back and forth fight. Yep. They hate each other. If you watched the show, you saw it play out, and the hatred between these two. And Muniz ends up knocking him out in the end after these guys go back and forth. It's no different than any other sport. You want to see it play out. You'd actually prefer to see a good fight instead of just a one slap knockout. And now that you've experienced, obviously the live event has been a work in progress for us. We've only been here a year. The live event is a fucking blast. You ask anybody that goes to the live event, they love the live event. And that's what we try to do, just like the UFC. I've always had this thing with the UFC where we make the live event so good and so exciting that you never walk out and go, yeah, I'm not coming back to one of these. Mm-hmm. We had over 300 people we had to turn away for this event that wanted to come, and tickets sold out immediately. The tickets that we did sell. And this is different. I'm sort of building this thing differently than anything else we've done. We didn't just sell tickets. We sold VIP packages.
Right.
So when you come to Power Slap, it's an experience. It's not just an event that I'm buying tickets to. And it's one of those events that you really can't fucking get into. It's tough to get into.
Right. Except when you start going to big arenas, then you'll have the people in there.
Right. And what I'm figuring is the way that it's all playing out right now, Hawaii might be our first real big, where we actually go and sell tickets and do an arena.
What's the time frame on that, do you think?
I don't know. We're still working on it.
Okay.
But the next Power Slap's going to be, I guess I might as well announce it here with you now. We didn't announce it yet, did we? We did? All right. We already announced it. No big deal. April 12th. It's going to be the day before 300.
Okay. What's the main event on that one?
It is Wolverine.
We have Wolverine Turpin, but
yeah,
we're figuring it out.
Wolverine Turpin.
Oh, now Turp Daddy Slim is my favorite. My favorite guy.
I like him
Come
too.
On. So
I like him too.
Two other things I want to ask you about, Dana, and one is Power Slap and one is UFC 300. When you sold the UFC, I think it caught some people by surprise, right? Because you had been $40 million in the hole, and then all of a sudden now the company's going up and you sell it, right? And people were surprised by that. And I wonder if
including me.
I wonder if you see a same trajectory. Do you think Slap is something that is going to attract investors and people want to buy it or buy into it in a couple of years, given,
Kevin, it's already happening, man. This thing is a fucking juggernaut, man. It's unbelievable. I've never been a part of something so successful so fast in 1 year. Wait till the story comes out and you read this story. it's going to blow everybody's minds what this thing is doing.
I want to, I noticed you commented on my Instagram post of Sheena's knockout. So you might as well reveal to people, since everybody seemed to think that I was getting paid by you for covering it on Friday night. How much are you paying me?
That's right. Millions of dollars, Kevin Iole. You know what's hilarious? I when I read this stuff, it's like, so Travis Scott, arguably one of the most influential, famous people, to the younger demo right now. Did you see on his stories were all power slap, and he went live during it. He was going crazy during the event, and I saw morons on there saying they paid Travis. You know how much fucking money? How much money would I have to pay Travis Scott to do something like that? It's just the level of stupidity of people is fucking fascinating to me.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean,
just like I'm
tweeted
paying
that
Kevin
Brady was
Iole
there.
to go cover it.
I tweeted that Brady was there, and of course that's what people were saying, that you paid him to show up. So
millions of dollars. The money that I shelled out to pay Travis Scott, Tom Brady, Kevin Iole, and everybody else that was in the arena is unbelievable. We're deeper in the hole than we were the early days of the UFC, just paying celebrities to show up at our events.
So finally,
fucking morons.
Let's wrap out with this, UFC 300 or Conor question. I mean, you said on the Pat McAfee show at the Super Bowl that you thought Conor would hopefully fight in the fall.
Pat McAfee too had to pay him millions to show up to the event too. Forgot about Pat. Oh, and Charles Barkley. Imagine what we had to pay him.
Yeah,
actually, Charles Barkley came and gambled after at Durango and beat them for $500,000 that night.
There you go, Charles. Had it, baby. Remember the story?
So the only one who got paid that night was Charles.
But you said it when you talked to Pat McAfee that Conor hopefully in the fall. Why is it taking so long for him? Is he injured? Can you explain what the scenario is? That why we don't have clarity? This has been almost 3 years since he's been hurt.
Well, you got to first of all, he is coming back from one of the nastiest injuries you can come back from. How long was Anderson Silva out when he did it? How long was Chris Weidman out when he did it? The guys who break that bone. So that's an issue right there. Number one. Number two is Conor McGregor doesn't need the fucking money.
Right.
So when you don't need the money, it's not as easy. I mean, Habib doesn't need the money. Habib retired.
So would it be fair to say that if Conor's not fighting now, is he healthy enough to fight if he chose to fight?
Well, I don't know that. Only Conor knows that.
Well, okay, that's what I'm asking. So do you?
Conor's the one. I mean, these are questions for Conor McGregor, not me. Conor, I know he's training. I don't know what level of training he's doing. I don't know what level of kicking he's doing right now. I don't know any of that stuff.
But you talked to him about fighting. I mean, I'm sure you talked to him about fighting on 300. So you would have to have some idea, wouldn't you, Dana?
Yeah, but I need to know the guy's in a full camp and he's ready to go. And Conor McGregor has a movie coming out. He's got businesses that he's built. It's a completely different dynamic when you're dealing with a guy that has this kind of money.
And then last thing, what is your anticipation of the main event? Do you feel like, is there, John Jones came out the other day and said it wasn't going to be him today. Hamzat said he wasn't fighting on 300. So it's eliminating a lot of guys. When do you think you'll have it narrowed down, and any hints you can give us?
Yeah, I'll probably announce it. Maybe I'll announce it at the press conference this weekend.
All right. Well, that'll be fun. UFC pre-fight or post-fight press conference? You're going to make us wait
Post.
till after? Post-fight. Okay. UFC 298. You got to tune into the post. Not only do you have to tune into the fight card to see Alexander Volkanovski, now you got to watch the press conference to get the big announcement. Dana, you're the best. Thank you, brother.
Later, buddy. Have a great day.
You too. See ya.